Now, to make this kind of a bit more realistic, let's take an example of a software development environment. Okay, we'll establish the context for this quality management system. We'll assume this is a small to medium software developer specializing in dashboards for organizations. So there's no outsourced development. We have some purchased tools, libraries, and components, and it's sort of agile development using teams of 6. It's a young company still establishing a customer base and a market reputation. Okay, that's the context. So what does this mean? Well, small to medium enterprises can't afford a heavyweight quality management system, and it becomes a part-time job for everyone. Small to medium enterprises can't afford to have a quality management person sitting around doing nothing other than quality management. Now, this is a fairly big problem in the world because I think it's about 80% of the world software is developed by 20% of the organizations, but 20% of the software is developed by 80% of the organizations, which are small to medium enterprises. I have seen one estimate or one figure that says 90% of all software developers are in fact small to medium enterprises, and that means less than 25 people. In some parts of the world, small to medium enterprise is less than 10. So small. Can't afford specialized people sitting around just playing around with quality management. SMEs and small teams need less formal coordination, that is project plan specifications and the like. They use more informal coordination because they coordinate by what's called informal mutual adjustment. They talk to each other. Now, much of the software development method will be part of the software development environment setup, which is fair enough. Agile methods are prone to overlooking quality assurance activities. That's because there's no separate organizational oversight of it all, and there's really very little that requires you to stop and think, have you carried out quality assurance? So I think the closest it comes now in agile software development is in the definition of done. And that is starting to become fairly rigorous in some organizations, but in a lot of organizations, just it's done when I say it's done. No, that's not good enough. To establish a customer base, this company needs to be provably better than their competitors. So we need to produce information that says, we're pretty good. Now, choosing our practices. The quality policy normally is described in words recorded on a company website or on a wall poster. So we're talking about the quality management process for this particular company. All right. So the quality policy is described in words, stuck on a poster and put on the wall. Or it's on the website, or it's sitting around the manual somewhere. In the small to medium enterprise, it probably is not a big deal, and people aren't going to make a big fuss about it, but it should be written down somewhere so that it remains consistent through everybody's interpretation. Procedures, some will be described in some sort of a procedures manual. Some will be defined in business workflows. There's an increasing number of workflow tools available now in the different software that organizations use. Some will be defined in the software development environment. An increasing number of them will be. Particularly things like you connect your configuration management tool up to your software development environment, and you configure a workflow within the software development environment where you code, you devise some unit tests. Those unit tests are automatically invoked. When you merge it back into the code base, all the unit tests might be invoked. That sort of thing is very, very automatic, and that's a really good way of doing things. So you should choose which processes and procedures matter to this company and define them. The rest can be informal. Now, that's important. You shouldn't have to define every quality management procedure that everybody ever thought of. You should figure out what's important to this company, define those procedures and processes, and leave it at that. To do that, you're going to have to figure out which are the quality objectives that matter to this company. There are different taxonomies of quality objectives. I've taken the one that's currently in ISO 25010. for which I normally get quoted ISO 9126. That was the predecessor. 25010 superseded it somewhere around about 2008. So what matters to the customer? Now, to these customers, product qualities matter: the availability, performance, modifiability, testability, usability, security, and scalability. These are the major types of quality that matter to the customer. Now, I don't know which ones matter, but you should decide for your organization. Another one is responsiveness. Some organizations want the small to medium organization to respond to them quickly. If I ring them up, I want an answer. If I ring them up, I've got a problem, I want that problem attended to now, not in a week. Development cost matters. It matters a lot to a small to medium enterprise. You can't afford to be going over budget. And domain knowledge and expertise is another area that matters in small to medium enterprises, because these are things on which the organization competes. Right? Now, what does this company want to compete? Now, it's a young company, probably established in a specific domain knowledge. For example, it might be a company specializing in data analytics. Well, that's an area of competition, so you want to maintain your competitive edge there. A young company will probably need to respond to new and changing customer needs, and modifiability in the software matters, and agile development matters. Right? Software will need to update in real time, so performance matters. Cost is important, but not the most important. Right? Now, did I say somewhere that this organization is developing dashboards? The normal, web dashboards about some element of company's business. So this company developed dashboards for other companies to use. Okay. Quality measures, domain knowledge. How are you going to measure the domain knowledge? Well, when knowledge management became fashionable some years ago, probably back in the 90s, it was a question about how do you measure it. And the best that I found was that you add together the number of people by the years of experience in the domain, and the number of people with years of experience in this company, and the number of qualifications, however you want to measure the qualifications. Now, you can double count them if you wish, as long as you are open about exactly how you counted them. But that usually is some measure of the amount of knowledge and expertise available in your company. Responsiveness. Time from customer request to response or delivery, okay? So if you're going to boast about your responsiveness, that's some sort of measure of it. Software characteristics, usually software modifiability, in this particular case, modifiability or maintainability. So choose a tool that measures it and use that tool. Performance, these dashboards have to respond in real time, so you need a pretty good measure of how well your dashboard performs. I gather this is a fairly specialized field because you've got so much updates going on at the same time. There are ways of doing it, but you want to be able to measure and prove that your software performs well. Now, automated measures that are integrated into the development environment are a good scheme, as I've been saying. Now, this is a company that develops dashboards, so develop one for itself. That'd be a good idea. Other measures that could be used: customer satisfaction. A small company can't afford to run specialized surveys, but they could afford to have a feedback form that's invoked in some sort of customer survey. I don't know about you, but that annoys me. I keep getting asked all the time, well, how well did we do? Well, you asked me that last week. I told you last week. Customer requests are always a good source of information. Just look at your complaints backlog. It's a very good source of information. It doesn't tell you necessarily that you're doing well, it tells you what you're not doing well. Process measures. How efficient are the processes? So the time from start to finish. How fast do you get it through? How effective are the processes? So defects that were introduced in the process. You need to be able to check those. and they might be detected downstream. So you can generate defects in the process, but if you find them in the process, maybe you should just not count that one. So there are other measures there. All right, so that generally is an example of how you might choose which practices to implement in a semi-agile environment for quality management process.